Am I the asshole for being upset that I'm not adopted? Okay. So, basically, I, 14F, was always told that I was adopted. This makes sense. I've never questioned it. I have two dads, who I call Abba/Papa and Dad/Daddy, who I love so much. Like, so much. I know I might come off as resentful in this post, but I'm just really hurt RN. Whenever I've brought up my biological parents in the past, my parents just completely shut down. My Abba will kind of just go quiet and pretend like he didn't hear me, and my dad always just changes the topic or tell me we'll talk about it when I'm older. Recently I started poking around to figure out some stuff about my bio parents. I didn't inform either of my dads. I didn't want to hurt their feelings, or make them upset, or make them think I'm ungrateful, and long story short, I found my birth certificate. As you can probably tell from the title of this post, surprise surprise, I'm not fully adopted. My Abba's name was on the certificate. I did more digging, and found a marriage record between him and the woman's name on the certificate, who is my birth mother. It was dated a few years before my dads got married. I was just so hurt and confused. Do they think I'm super shallow or something and would resent my dad cause we're not related? And why wouldn't they tell me about my mom, who's alive and well, BTW? I found her on social media, married, 2 kids. I guess I started getting really quiet and keeping to myself because I didn't know what to do with this and I was keeping it all inside. And then I was having this argument with my Abba and I kinda just snapped something about him not telling me about my birth mom and stuff. I didn't mean to reveal what I knew but I did. And now they're both upset and this is just a giant mess and I feel like such an asshole. But I also think I'm kinda justified. IDK. The friends I've told about this are divided. I wish I had never looked into this. Am I the asshole? Let's move on to the comments and see what advice the Reddit community has for OP. Edit. I don't know if this really matters, but a lot of people are bringing up cultural views on gay marriage and adoption over time. So, I grew up in America, not near the Bible Belt. My dad is from England and moved here when he was a young adult. My Abba bounced around everywhere growing up. He met my dad when he was on a trip to London, but ultimately spent most his time in the States. First, we have this interaction between OP and commenters. No assholes here, but I do think they handled this poorly. Your parents probably wanted you to love your dad as much as your Abba. Again, I don't think they handled this well, but I don't think it was malicious. Thanks. I agree. I feel like I should have been told. You found out that you came from somewhere different than you thought you did. That's a viscerally disorienting and confusing thing for anyone to go through, and your feelings are totally natural and were only to have been expected when you found out like this. In childcare these days it's strongly recommended to tell children in complicated families, adopted, half siblings, in non-parent custody, whatever, the truth as early as you can find an age-appropriate way to explain it. You can give more details as the child gets older, but the idea is to make it so that there's never a moment of surprised reveal and upset, because it's something they've always known. I'm sorry to say this, but your dad kinda messed up doing things this way. You were bound to find out eventually. To be honest, reading your story, it made me wonder if maybe your dad is trans, and he gave birth to you before he transitioned and changed his name, and maybe he doesn't want anyone, even including you, to know that about him, or think of him like that. But even if that were the case, it would still have been a mistake to keep that from you and set you up for an upsetting surprise like this. When you get the chance to have a family conversation about this, it's important for you to express your feelings clearly and also to listen to your dad and papa with an open heart. Explain how you feel with I statements, such as when this happened, I felt, or I feel, about what you said. With any luck at all, your dads will hear and accept how you feel, and everybody can get some closure about this weird circumstance. Thank you for understanding. TBH, I did suspect that my dad was trans for a little bit, but then I was able to track down my bio mom on social media. I really appreciate the advice. Thank you. I'll keep it in mind. Crossing my fingers for you, kiddo. Hopefully this all will end with your dads apologizing for their mistaken choice and its effects on you, and all of you guys closer than ever. 3. THX. Not the asshole. You are allowed to be angry when people you love mislead you, even when it may have been done with the best of intentions. I can understand the reasoning why your parents told dad that you were adopted, as they wanted equal roles as your parents, and there is the chance that knowing that one of them was your biological father may have changed that, or there may be a reason why your biological mother has not been a part of your life. At 14 you may have been ready for them to be more open and honest with you, but that is always a hard decision to make. Reflect on how this has made you feel, and when you are ready try to have an open, honest conversation with your fathers. It is clear how much you love them, and just make sure they know that whilst you are upset because they were not honest with you, that you still love them, and they are both still your father. It's pretty hurtful they kept such a big secret from you, and even if it was wrong, they may have had honest reasons for why. Talk to your dads, as others have said, remind them that you love them, but be ready for answers that may not make sense to you, or may upset you. Abba might have had an awful breakup, or your birth mom might have had her own issues, and dad might have been afraid you would love Abba more or always long for the mother he can't be, especially as a little girl. This is a lot for a young woman to cope with. They did probably try and do what's best for you. I hope you can all find some peace. Good luck. It seems like the commenters had a lot of great advice and insight for OP. Now let's move on to the update to see what resolution followed. Update. Am I the asshole for being upset that I'm not adopted? Some of you wanted an update, so here you go. Thank you so much for all the feedback and advice. I truly, deeply appreciate it. I wrote down all my thoughts beforehand and ended up sitting down with my dads a few days after the fight to talk. I used I statements and told them how them not being honest about being me adopted really hurt me and made me feel like they didn't trust me. It made me feel like they thought I was shallow and would love one of them more than the other, which I don't, and made me question if we were all really as close as I thought we were. I felt it damaged our relationship. They were really understanding, and the conversation got heavy and emotional. There was a lot of crying. I'm not going to go over exact details out of respect for their privacy, but here's the gist of it. My Abba, birth father, and dad, adopted father, were friends ever since they were teenagers. Whereas my dad was openly out of the closet, my Abba was not. Abba ended up marrying my birth mother and had 2 kids, a girl, and then 5 years later, they had me. My older sister, whom I never knew, ended up dying in a super traumatic way when I was only a baby. Their marriage fell apart, they split, and my BO mom couldn't process it and ended up hospitalized in a mental institution for a little bit. My Abba moved in with my now dad, and they both worked together to take care of me and worked through the grieving together. After a while my Abba accepted that he was bisexual, and then after a few years they got married. Even before they were together, I apparently got super clingy to my dad as a baby. He was the only one who could calm me down when I wanted my mom, and they were worried telling me would damage our relationship. They were planning on telling me when I was 5 or 6, but kept putting it off until it was seemingly too late. Instead they just buried the past and hoped it would never come up. After my BO mom got out of the hospital, my Abba and dad both tried to help her get back on her feet and set up visitation, but she cut all contact with them and signed away her parental rights. That was the last time they spoke to her. They had no idea that she was still alive, let alone had kids. I'm still kinda hurt, even though I understand why they did it. I do think our relationship got partially damaged, but it'll get better with time. We are going into family counseling. The next step is reaching out to my BO mom. I'm debating whether or not to do it. I don't want to bring up any trauma for her. My dads are leaving the choice up to me, but would like to be involved in the process. And now on to the next story. Am I the asshole for taking the car keys because my son won't tell me his employer's name? I'm 52F. My 18-year-old son has been offered some sort of work at home job from some game company, but he refuses to tell me what company. I have told him that it's pretty normal for 2 people living in the same house to know each other's employers, and he expressed skepticism. I believe it would be wise for me to know the name of this company, if only to verify that it's not a scam. He insists that this is a reasonable boundary and that I will never know the name. I find this pretty obnoxious. He lives in my house and drives my car, and he won't tell me his employer's name. I took him out to dinner to celebrate the mysterious job, but I also told him that I wasn't going to let him keep using my car until he at least tells me the name, and I kept the car keys. Last night, he came into my bedroom to ask for the keys. I reminded him that I wanted the company name, and he said it was Spongy Tips. I trusted him and gave him the keys. This morning, I learned that there is no such company. When I asked my son, he said that Spongy Tips was an anagram for stop spying. I took my keys back at that time. He has a history of odd secrecy. For instance, he wanted me never to meet or interact with anyone from his old Boy Scout troop. He also refuses any mental health assistance. Am I the asshole here? This seems like a completely absurd boundary. It's rude and downright disrespectful, not in the child to parent sense, but the basic person to person sense. He seems to believe he's standing up for his right to privacy. I believe I'm standing up for my right to be treated like a human being, not a wallet. Am I the asshole? Edit. A few things keep coming up. This is an online job, so he doesn't need car access to get to it. I own the car he uses. He does not pay rent. I cover all expenses. I've generally allowed more freedom/privacy than the average parent. I've never gone through his phone or his internet history, for instance, though I pay for the phone and the internet access. This is not new behavior for him. He has a history of an extreme desire for privacy on matters most wouldn't consider private. Edit 2. I returned the keys earlier. I returned them before the first edit. Actually, we've talked more and come to a détente. I will let him continue to use a car. He says that he'll be willing to share basic info when he's ready, but will need to work up to it. All is well, more or less. And now on to the comments. Info: is there a reason why your son is so reluctant to share any information with you? I second this question. People aren't generally excessively secretive, unless they've been given a reason to not trust you. I also think this question is important. If he has a history of not wanting you involved in his life, I imagine it's because of things you, OP, have done in the past. And using the "this is my house" line is super cliche and will only drive a deeper wedge in your relationship. If he wants to keep things private, he should be able to. If it's a scam, he will learn his lesson. It's not like you'll know immediately if this company is legit or not. When he gave you a fake name, you were satisfied. So it's about compliance, not his safety. Kind of. You say it was about compliance, but he investigated it, and maybe just trusted his son, and that he wouldn't lie about his place of employment. I don't think it's crazy to know where someone works, and it seems shady to not tell someone. From your perspective and mine as well, it seems weird. However, we don't know what the real history is between OP and the son. I come from a household where privacy wasn't a right, and it leads to hiding weird things from your parents. We will never get a truly honest answer from OP. If OP is creating a toxic environment, they'd never admit it. Just as my mom has everyone fooled that my childhood was fantastic. He could be coding for a porn game, who knows? Yeah. Or he could be worried if OP is a type of parent to contact employers about their kids. My mum did that. She rang up my employer and cancelled all my shifts because she was worried I wouldn't have enough time for revision. She cancelled my shifts from February and my A-levels were in June. And I had already told my manager I'd do my shifts up to February half term and then stop afterwards until my exams were over. But apparently that wasn't enough for my mum. So yeah, that was the first reason I thought of for why the kid doesn't want OP knowing the name of the employer. And I think he'd be more willing to tell OP if they weren't so forceful in trying to get the name out of him. That would raise alarm bells more. Me as the kid, I'd be like, why do they want to know so badly? The whole post screams missing reasons to me. I'd very much like to hear the kid's side. If mom is this nosy and controlling over an online gig and he's this protective of his privacy, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if this was due to years of being burned by her snooping before. For real. I'm 34 and my mom is my emergency contact because I'm single and live with her until I buy my own place. She not only knows the company, but where the site is, who my manager is, and has her cell and work number. I asked permission from my boss to give this info in case my mom needs me while I'm working. I can't use my cell at my desk due to federal regulations and don't have an outbound work number. I'll repeat, I'm 34 years old and wanted my mom to have it. For OP's kid to not even want her to know the company name, it doesn't just scream issues. It's a damn ticker tape parade. And then we have this interaction between OP and a commenter. He knows this post is here and knows how to use Reddit, so he's free to tell his side if he likes. I'm not deliberately leaving anything out. If there is some other relevant piece of information, I don't know what it is. I'll answer any questions. That is a great essay, though, isn't it? I've forwarded the link many times myself. Do you have a history of asking about all the details of your kid's day? For a while I was super secretive, because my parents had a habit about asking about everything and discussing it to death, even if it was well-intended interest or even neutral. My parents are pretty chill and non-judgmental about me watching my choice of movie in the evening, for example, but after a while of them asking about every detail of movie or show, I'm just done talking and limit contact, just so I can enjoy my popcorn and movie without the endless questions. I usually stick with how's it going and similar. If he seems obviously upset, I might ask if something is wrong. Are you someone who needs to know everything about your son's life? Are you someone who needs to have full control of your son's life? Do you control whom he may meet? Do you control his use of technology? Do you check on what websites he has used? What emails he has sent and received? What text messages and telephone calls he has made or received? Do you walk into his room without knocking? Do you force your son to leave his bedroom door open? Removed his door? Locks not allowed. Are you a manipulative person? What would your son say to that? You say that your son can respond to us if he likes. Can he really? What will be your actions if your son does respond and responds in a fashion that you don't like? Will you punish your son? Perhaps some screaming, some shouting, some bullying? Perhaps you will threaten your son with kicking him out? Perhaps you will play that game, if not talking to him. Perhaps you will hit your son or throw things at him. Have you ever done any of the above? If you do any of the above, or anything like the above, then you are not a good parent. I can then understand why your son might be secretive. You do sound controlling, because you threaten to take the car keys away from your son, just because he won't tell you who his employee is. You sound like a child who is having a temper tantrum, because you are not getting your own way. You do not have the right to know everything that goes on in your son's life. You do not have the right to control what goes on in your child's life. And now let's move on to the update to find out how this situation ended. Update: am I the asshole for taking the car keys because my son won't tell me his employer's name? Hi all. Since my thread kind of caught on, I thought I'd come back with an update. Here's the original post in which I explained that my newly adult son said he had an online job but would not tell me the name of his employer or anything else about the job. I listened to what everyone had to say, and I decided my son was probably reacting to his father's mistreatment. As I mentioned in discussion, his father did some of the things people kept asking if I had done. I moved forward by treating my son as fairly and respectfully as possible, and I did not press him further about his mysterious employer. Things stayed bad for a while. He yelled at me a lot and acted entitled. Eventually, I realized that he was slipping into his father's role, with no real controls on him, and his housemate always acting civil/respectful. No matter how he acted, he was acting out what had been modeled for him. I was not about to sit around and watch that, and so I emailed him a sort of manifesto in which I calmly and neutrally laid out specific things I would not tolerate. For instance, being yelled at, and told him that he must either rent that stuff or find other housing at the end of this lease. He never responded, but I guess he thought it through, because he did begin treating me better. This is a way. Basic respect plus zero tolerance for receiving mistreatment. For a relationship to improve, both are necessary. Things are better now. I still don't know the name of his employer, but he's loosening up enough to trust me a little more in general. He recently came to me to ask for help with a company refusing to cancel his account, and I'm happy to help him sort it out. He has also relaxed enough about the present to think about the future, and is planning to get his JED and perhaps try college. I'm willing to let him keep the job secret a while longer. We may be okay in the end. I want to thank everyone who contributed to the discussion. Some of you yelled at me, but many of you made thoughtful, caring comments which helped me think the whole situation through. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us. What were your thoughts on today's stories? Be sure to leave them in the comments below. And be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps this channel grow.